And I'm delighted to say that my next speaker is Pavel Chernoverkhskiy. He is Chief Underwriting Officer for Zurich Company Limited, an insurance expert in downstream energy, power and engineering writing. Pavel is currently based in Dubai, which is where I flew in from yesterday. And for nearly a decade, he's been operating in the Middle East, Africa, South Asia, and Central Asian regions. A busy man, I'm sure you'll agree. And he is going to be joining us now to talk about climate change and resilience in energy infrastructure and underwriting viewpoints. Thank you very much indeed for joining me.
Hello, everyone, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for being with us today. I'm very privileged for the opportunity to be here and to present to you. So big thanks to organizers, obviously to Fidelity Insurance Brokers and LOCKTON for this wonderful event. It's a difficult topic, you know, and it will tie back to a lot of what has been discussed already during the day. I hope it does not provoke that sort of debates that we've seen, because honestly, questions on this topic are similarly difficult, for me included. But by all means, it will be interesting to root this discussion about what's happening globally and specifically in Pakistan in relation to energy. And my attempt would be to give you kind of look from the other side, if you want, from the insurance standpoint as to how we take these things. But again, climate change and even more specifically, the role of energy industry in it is such a hot, vast and extremely controversial topic, because the amount of discussions, research, opinions, and obviously the media coverage related to the topic is unprecedented. And also, there are some well-defined principles and positions right now in the society about the topic, but at the same time, we can observe lack of unity and conformity across all various stakeholders when it comes to discussing the climate change and again, the role that energy system plays in it. And also similarly controversial and sometimes polar opinions exist in different areas and between different experts, in many instances challenging each other. So, yeah, that works. So on one hand, there seems to be a consensus within the scientific community mostly that human economical activity, and again specifically the energy segment of it, is responsible for climate trends and specifically global warming. This is just one of many, many examples which directly links industry and energy to what's happening. But on the other hand, there are still enough voices claiming that the issue is exaggerated, and policymakers, and particularly governments, are overreacting when responding to the climate change issue, and again, specifically to the role, and obviously in this context it is considered to be a negative role that is attributable to the fossil fuels within the energy mix overall. If we look from an industry standpoint, these voices and opinions are also quite diverse. I think everyone knows this guy, and it's kind of a representation of majority of the, I would say, corporate world, because it embraced, or so it seems, it embraced the idea of urgently needed transition and walk away from the fossil fuel domination. But again, some others don't seem to be quite assured about that. And depends on the way you look at it, they are being more practical or maybe more cynical, basically saying that it is not making any good if we just abruptly stop or try to do that with the fossil fuels. And again, it's ironic that these quite different opinions originate from industries which, how do I put it, potentially tackle the question of energy transition in different ways, because kind of both are aiming to make profits, but maybe make it in different ways. and therefore playing the card of climate change in a slightly different way, or actually quite different way. So within the insurance industry, situation is very, very similar, because insurers are facing tremendous pressure and very strong rhetorics, actually sometimes borderline aggressive rhetorics, urging them to immediately stop supporting any kind of parts of the energy systems which is related to fossil fuels, or at least by some sort of standards not considered to be sustainable. This organization is being particularly vocal, and a lot of large international insurers are being aimed by them, pointing out that the progress that they want to see is not fast enough. And you can see that basically a lot of insurers are actually doing what they are supposed to do or expected to do, and amount of restrictions when it comes to fossil fuels, and obviously coal is in the forefront for that, are increasing. At the same time, some of the highly regarded industry experts are claiming that abrupt withdrawal of support by insurance from the fossil fuels will not make any good. Basically, this side of opinions articulate the need for journey, for transition and gradual change, as opposed to just like radical decisions and abrupt stop. So that gives you a perspective from kind of three, I would say, scientific community, the world of business, and insurance is part of it. So needless to say that these diverse views will continue to exist because it is in human nature to challenge certain things and challenge each other, and especially when it comes to such emerging and rapidly evolving topics. But as I said earlier, it is kind of almost recognized by all the urgent need for actions, and it's embraced by the world industrial and especially energy sectors. So while we can argue regarding the underlying reasons and potential solutions, it is difficult to deny the fact that there is an articulated trend for global temperature rising, and we have been facing this for the last century or so. Regardless of whom we actually blame for that, whether it's human or nature, but it is happening, and this is something that can be quite easily proved and demonstrated. Needless to say that this increasing global average temperature does have an impact on both people's lives and also the functioning of the economies across the world, because anomaly heats become more often, and that in turn impacts the global ocean levels, causing damages and destructions to the concerned populations and locations. The increased level of pollutions put various ecosystems and even human health at danger, and natural catastrophes happen more often and cause more damage, as simple as that, making again a huge number of people across the globe suffer. So that's something we can also establish as a given fact, that frequency and severity of natural catastrophes is increasing. There is enough data, that's a fact. And if we assume this commonly adopted point of view that basically the climate change is one of the key underlying reasons for this temperature rising, then this will be one of the most obvious effects, right? Because it does affect, it directly affects people's life, and in one of the most devastating matters. And from an insurance standpoint, again, this will be one of the most obvious and direct implications of this process, because simply put, the more damage and more severe damage from natural catastrophes leading to more losses payable by insurance companies. So very quickly, because again, it will be an element of repetition and a lot was said during the previous sessions, but just to put into perspective how the topic of the climate change transpires for Pakistan specifically. And sadly, for several years, Pakistan has been included in the sort of unfortunate top ranking of countries which are most vulnerable to negative effects of the climate change. The recent floods have become a real tragedy, obviously with horrible consequences for people's lives, and of course economic losses were similarly horrendous. That event is actually among the most devastating and loss-making on the global scale, as we have seen on the previous cat map events. So, yeah. Whenever this set of data or this set of facts is being mentioned, it is often followed by pointing to an element of injustice because, and again, this is something that was mentioned already several times, Pakistan is a very minor contributor to global emissions. It's far less than 1% as per this particular data set, but numbers are pretty similar across different sources. And moreover, and again, sorry for slight repeating, but based on my experience, actually, it is surprisingly an obvious fact for many people that countries' energy mix and balance is not actually that negative as maybe some perception exists. Because when it is compared, say, for the whole Asia-Pacific energy mix, you can see that the portion of fuels which are considered to be most appealing from ESG perspective is not that bad, actually. Yeah, we can argue about natural gas, but it's kind of in the middle, right? We still consider it to be relatively environmental friendly, to put it in a simple way. So from that perspective, again, the actual mix of the fossil fuels, which are typically most accused in the emission burden, is more advantageous compared to on the global scale in some particular territories in the world. So anyways, as we established previously, despite there's so much controversy and debates around the topic, it is difficult to find a country or a business which has not adopted some sort of climate resilience and energy transition strategies. And from that perspective, this is, by the way, on that upper left side, this is not my words, but actually this is coming from one of the official reports of a Pakistani delegation related to one of the COP gatherings. So the fact is that on a government level, a lot of efforts being made and a lot of policies being drafted related to the topic. Obviously, they are focused on creating some sort of roadmap with articulated and measurable goals. And obviously, focus is made on emergency response and protection. And of course, the change of the energy mix that is inevitable. And again, it's very important in this context to relate to what was mentioned in the previous session and in sessions before that, that we talk about energy mix presuming some kind of efficiency and some kind of improvements in terms of becoming more clean from emissions perspective, but the transmission and distribution system efficiency is actually equally important. And that's, again, a very, very valid point for Pakistan, because it was so many times already brought up in these conversations. And that's why globally we are also seeing a lot of new and very CapEx-intensive projects related to transmission of electricity on first unprecedented distances, but also with the next level efficiency. For instance, the direct current high voltage projects become more often, and we see the boom in them. So when it comes to business, this is some proprietary data collated by various Zurich researchers, but again, we see that pretty much every company now will be adopting some sort of strategy, and the required changes are being made via few focus items, where obviously changing the energy mix and energy supply would be the first one, but also enhancing energy efficiency again, and also developing new technologies for reduced CO2 emissions, whether these are things like carbon capture and storage. So just the snapshot below, it's also interesting to know that it is not a surprise that changes on a high level mandated by the management of the business, but actually they are initially and originally imposed by a broader group of stakeholders, which includes investors, shareholders, customers to a large extent, and of course governments via their policies. So we are insurers. And I promise you that there will be some insurance viewpoints on that. So we deal with risks, and it's all about the risk, because various risks will arise during the journey and during this transition following the changes and modifications that are being implemented. And of course, there is a huge element of risk coming from the climate change itself, as we already saw on the previous slide. So we commonly try to divide such risks related to all these things into three broader topics. I guess physical risk is the most obvious one. It follows what we already discussed and what we saw. Transition risks are less obvious. They would include a very diverse universe of threats and exposures related to energy transition process. And quite obviously, energy industry is particularly open to this transition risk, because it is not just a push for, again, cleaner energy sources or the energy mix, but it's a question of energy security. And again, I can only tie it back to all the discussions we've heard during the day today, that it is a very valid item for Pakistan, because energy security actually becomes maybe first in this equation, along with the capital implications and the cost of actual electricity. So that's also important to understand the driving forces behind that. And you know well how sensitive the topic is, right? And finally, litigation risks are relatively new, or at least they became spotlighted fairly recently as the policies become more stringent, and implications for not compliance with these policies are also becoming more severe. So companies have to adopt and somehow manage all these risks. I just want to highlight that insurance can actually come with a very powerful, very good tool to help in that. And insurance actually shall be seen as an important partner for business on this journey. How we can tackle, how we can help on a practical manner is basically physical risks, more straightforward. Insurance has a lot to bring to the table. We are experts in data gathering and creating modeling tools for decades. So that's quite obvious. Transition risks are slightly more difficult. Again, insurance can do a lot actually, because we accumulate experience of thousands of customers from everywhere, and we can translate that into more practical solutions and tools, as well as we can do the role of expertise sharing, which is very important. And litigation is a huge challenge for everyone, including insurance. It is very difficult to navigate this rapidly changing environment. So a lot of work has to be done, but this is something that insurance and business can partner together as well. One important thing, though, to understand, I didn't want to make it like a separate slide or anything, but whenever we talk about risk, we also need to remember that insurance is a business itself, right? And while the insurers are there to offer a solution for their clients and customers, they're actually equally exposed to all the same threats and risks, and we have also to address that. So sometimes it's kind of left behind the context, but it is important to realize that. I guess to sort of finish with the risk, right? Across all the risks and evolving exposures related to climate change and energy transition, like I said, we as insurers want to be seen as partners, because whenever it comes to kind of three key items of where insurance can partner with the business on that, risk assessment, resilience, and recovery. It's not a coincidence that when you talk to most of the insurers, they will actually put recovery elements as the last one, because on one hand, it is the most obvious function of insurance, But the problem is sometimes it is considered to be the only function, right, to pay losses. But in reality, insurance invests a lot to bring more added value than just paying claims. And it only makes sense for our customers to basically tap into this much broader proposition that insurance can offer when it comes to things we already discussed, like assessing, quantifying the risk, and building resilience to that. And I'm happy to say that actually more and more clients realize that. Is being recognized by a lot of our customers. I thought I share these findings from quite an extensive and comprehensive survey that Zurich conducted across business executives around the world. I wanted to emphasize how basically responses can vary. I took United Arab Emirates as just an example of a particular country. And when compared to global results, it is interesting to note how huge is the demand for policy support. I think it can be a reflection of state of maturity of such policies in different parts of the world. But again, it's good to see that we are beyond just like obvious things of paying for claims. And again, most important item to me that leaving that function aside, meaning just reimbursing for losses, customers do recognize how much insurance actually can give in terms of added value and in terms of capabilities. So I'm almost actually at the end of it. I just wanted finally and very quickly I think it's always a good idea to be more self-reflective and to think about the major obstacles or roadblocks limiting ability to insurance in supporting their customers during the energy transition thing, because that's what kind of we have to listen a lot, right? That there are certain things we can't do, and there are always an element of I would say demanding more from our customers, which is absolutely logical, absolutely fair enough. But I think it's kind of I should have a right to present insurance and say why actually some of these things are not that straightforward. Quite obviously and unsurprisingly, a lot of these roadblocks will actually be similar to the challenges business itself faces on the roads of dealing with these topics, right? Again, citing the executive survey that I already mentioned, on the left side there is also a climate change scorecard. That's another research that Zurich do on a regular basis. And in simple terms, it's based on the survey results, basically the most common factors which are recognized by different stakeholders, which become a roadblock on the way of energy transition, but eventually achieving the goals for average temperature reduction, or at least slowing down the pace of increase. And on the right is again the abstract from the same executive survey, which is showing the key challenges from companies' perspective. I think it's quite obvious, right? I don't need to say much. These things are very much in the media, and I think if I do the same survey in the group, results will be similar. But my point is that, again, if you relate most of these items, which are basically making life of the business difficult in order to achieve certain targets and in order to tackle the problem, all of these things and challenges will transpire in more complexity for insurers. Because basically ability of insurers to be efficient and relevant for their customers when it comes to this value proposition related to innovation in the energy space is affected and impaired by quite obvious things. Technology, because we need to stay on top. It's a challenge for the industry, it's a challenge for science, but it's a similar challenge for insurers because we have to calculate the associated risk. It is even more difficult. Basically, ability to do so is aggravated by lack of historical data, because a lot of you would know that insurance typically looks backwards, analyzing statistical historical data. And in many instances, when it comes about when we talk about these things, there is no historical data, so we'll have to make a lot of assumptions. This implied complexity of making assumptions and of trying to predict something that never existed before makes the risk and data modeling more difficult. So eventually it will just reduce the accuracy of these models, which is again not particularly reflecting good on our ability to provide the services. Cost and capital is one of the key problems for business. Similarly, it is for insurance, because it comes from different angles. It is a question of capacity that we're able to provide. It's a question about volatility and how this capacity is deployed. So again, it's a very logical link between what's happening in the industry and how insurance can embrace that. And one item which is also may not so be interesting from a business perspective, but for insurance, it's a topic of constant debate, because when it comes to something like energy transition and very rapidly evolving technology and change of the, again, if you think that hydrogen or carbon storage did not exist in like just a matter of maybe decades, and now it's very much there. So basically, demand from our customers is now to sometimes not just to pay on a like-for-like basis, but to pay for improvements, because if you have a fairly old industrial facility and you have a major loss on that, as a customer, you probably will not be looking to rebuild the same facility, because you will want to make it more in compliance with requirements from all the energy transition items, which means an element of improvements. And it's been like a fundamental and core principle of insurance for hundreds of years now, that we are not paying for improvements. We just need to bring customer in exactly the same position as it was before the loss. So that's where we struggle a lot of it, because we feel that there is a lot of even moral obligation from different stakeholders for insurance to be the facilitator of the process. But at the same time, again, it's not particularly easy, because it's bringing products to the next level, and it's not particularly easy to embrace that. So these are my 2 cents on the topic, and again, it's not particularly easy one, because it can probably go for hours and hours, but I hope you found it a little bit interesting to see it with the eyes of insurer. Thank you so much.